your input, Shabir, and just to let you know, we are thinking along those lines in EPB, mentorship programs, but more involved in assisting and holding hands with young entrepreneurs who don't have they have the skill set, but they don't have maybe the experience, and that's why we want to join mentorship programs. You also touched base about hotel alliances. I'm glad to tell you, EPB Tanzania are starting the first hoteliers alliance in Africa. We're just on the verge of forming a company, like you mentioned. Also, in regard to best practice, EPB have formulated a lot of workshops whereby in the near future, we will be helping Jamaati members across all sectors to develop best practice and strive for continuous business development. So great minds think alike. I want to get in.
Fools seldom do that.
We were blessed in Tanzania pre-corona. Tanzania over the last decade has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Pre-COVID-19, the Minister of Finance and Planning stated Tanzania had a very strong macroeconomic outlook. His projections for 2020 pre-corona was continuous GDP growth of 7% and controlling inflation from 3 to 4.5%. Obviously, those figures are going to change now. He was also cited in saying that Tanzania and Zanzibar had done a very good job in poverty reduction. It is concerning. A few weeks ago, the Zanzibar government said post-corona, the number of people living below poverty line will increase to a magnitude of double what it presently is now. As we all know, Zanzibar depends heavily on tourism. What do you feel are the short-term, medium-term, long-term impact on the economy following COVID-19? And if you could state a few key sectors which are at the highest risk.
Let me just say that I think, you know, when we talk about GDP figures and whatever, I really don't know whether we ever get the correct figures. A few weeks ago, we were talking about a 2% worldwide shrinkage in GDP, right? Which means huge. It's a huge amount. We look at America and say they came up with a package to be able to stimulate their economy, and suddenly 2-point-something trillion, nearly $3 trillion is pumped into the economy. Where did this money come from? Where was it? Was it sitting in a bank somewhere? Obviously not, right? It's just being printed. What does that mean in the long term, right? I feel that, you know, that amount of money being printed and the value of that money eventually has to have an effect, whether it is now, whether it is in the medium term, or whether it is in the long term. But there is going to be an effect. You know, I don't want to get into the debate of American dollar versus the Chinese yuan or the Indian rupee or whatever, but there are so many schools of thought on that. Let's look at Tanzania. We are currently facing tightness in terms of dollars because a lot of exports have not happened. Lots of, if I look at it, the tourism sector is not bringing in the foreign exchange that we want, right? So there is a tightness. What does the tightness mean? So far, the Bank of Tanzania has been able to withstand that, and we are still within the same levels that we have been over the last 2-3 years. But there is always a possibility that it will suddenly, you might have a issue with the devaluation of the currency, which can be really expected. What the Bank of Tanzania has done is try and also come up with some kind of a stimulus package. If I look at it, it's not money. It is how we can actually have more liquidity in the economy. And what they did is lower the cash reserve requirement of the banks from 7% to 6%. Now, you might find, well, what is 1%? But 1% is a lot of money, right? It is a lot of money, and I think that is now going to slowly permeate within the economy, and hopefully that will create some stimulus. Bank of Tanzania is also asking us as hoteliers to give them an idea as to what is happening within and what are our issues, which we articulated in a letter to the Prime Minister some time ago to say this is what we are asking for. We're not asking for any freebies. All we are saying is that things should be deferred, including, because a lot of people are leveraged, right? A lot of hotels are leveraged. I mean, you don't just have $25, $30 million lying in your bank account to be able to suddenly go and build a hotel. So you put in your money and you ask bank to put in their money, and you have projections, and those projections right now are zero. So what happens?
And this, sorry to interrupt you, but this is not only for people who have leveraged themselves of the magnitude of hotels, but even fellow Ismaili people who have borrowed money to do trading or to do other business
activities.
So this is applicable to the whole spectrum of Ismaili businesses.
It's the whole gamut. Shazin, what happens is that let's turn back the clock to 2015, 2016. Property prices were at their peak, right? And when I say at their peak, they were probably a little bit overinflated anyway. So there was supposed to be a correction of some sort that would have come in. You don't expect prices of New York in Dar es Salaam, although I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be, but I'm saying it's unrealistic looking at the economies, scale of economies. So let's say you had a property worth $1 million, right? And you went to the bank to borrow, right? So that you wanted to do whatever business you wanted to do. So you gave a projection to the banks, and the bank said, okay, we are going to give you the limit of the forced sale value of your property, which will probably be 25% under the actual value, okay? So they gave you $750,000. Now go forward from 2016, now you're in 2018, right? And there's nothing COVID related here. Suddenly the property prices have dropped. There are no buyers. There are no, everybody's trying to sell, no buyers, because the property price, like I said, there has been basically trying to adjust itself. So the price has gone down by 40%. So your $1 million thing now is worth $600,000. But you have borrowed $750,000. So the bank turns around to you and say, hey, make good that $150,000. Not only $150,000, but now your forced sale value, 75% of $650,000 is going to be very different. So you make up the difference.
About $300,000.
Where do you get that money from suddenly, right? So you tell the bank, okay, we are going to restructure, do whatever, take longer time to pay, get a moratorium, whatever it is. Now COVID hits you. Now, and you are in the hotel business and there is zero business, zero.
So you're unable to service your debt service because you have no revenue coming in.
Not only your debt service, not only your principal amount, you're not even able to service your
operational cost.
And interest that you have to give to the bank. So what happens? This is an effect. What I'm trying to paint a picture is that this is not only in this sector. It boils down to now to the banking sector, which is our strongest sector, which is what runs the finance of this country. And now the banks are faced of taking a decision. Shabir borrowed $1 million from me, $750,000 from me for $1 million property, which today is worth $500,000, right? He's not been able to give me even the gap of $350,000 that I need to keep him alive, but he's not paying me anything. Come 90 days, the rules come into effect. Bank of Tanzania rules come into effect. To say 90 day, you will now provision this in your books as a bank. So that's a loss. It goes against your bottom line, right? So it hurts the banks. So what do they have to do? They have to try and get as much out of it as possible. So what will they do? Go and sell those properties? Who are the buyers? Right? Who are the buyers? I don't think there are. If there are a handful of buyers out there, I'll be very surprised.
So vicious cycle, basically.
It's a very, very difficult cycle, and we are all caught into this. So the Bank of Tanzania came up with an incentive program of some sort, stimulus of some sort, to say that try and give moratoriums, right? Longer loan restructuring periods, right? And we are also right now battling with some of the banks to say, lower your interest rate. Otherwise, it's not possible to pay, right? So we even wrote, when we wrote to the Prime Minister, we asked him to give us this kind of leeway so that we could be able to, it's not like we don't want to pay. I don't think any businessman who took that money had the intention of saying, I'll take the money and swallow it. It won't. That never works anyway. So we are in a very precarious situation as far as the economy itself is concerned. When we talk about GDP, recently I heard that we are still in line for a 7.2% GDP. My instinct tells me not possible. It's not possible. It's all the sectors. It is now only now that we are seeing, for example, what has happened with Barrick Gold. Now those containers have been have left this country, right, to go out for assaying and whatever, and money will start flowing back in as far as the mining sector is concerned. And Barrick gave $100 million, right, which goes a long way. So slowly, there are certain sectors which will open up. Our biggest thing in Tanzania was that gas. Look at what happened to crude oil prices, right? First time in the history of the world, they were giving away crude oil. Come take it for free, we'll pay you for it, right? Where would you hear something like that? It's amazing. What we have seen over the last 3-4 months has been really unprecedented. I don't like to use the word unprecedented because everybody wants to use the same word. I think we have to coin another phrase of some sort. But it's really, we don't know. I look, America is half closed still, and it's going through its crisis with this riots and demonstrations happening every day. It's very sad to see something like that. You look at UK and they're trying to open up slowly. And I talked about Sweden earlier. But last week I learned that Sweden had the second largest death rate of all the COVID hit countries. So did it work? These are questions. So we really don't have answers to anything.
What can be done to improve the supply chain for Jamaati members that are heavily dependent on imported goods? Do you think there'll be shortages of supply from overseas? And what are your thoughts on businesses that are holding extra stock at this time?
My advice to anyone is conserve. And when I say conserve, you have cash, hold on to it. Don't spend it. Or if you're going to spend it, think not twice, thrice, 4 times. Are you doing the right thing? Will it give you a return, right? Cash today is king. It's always been king, but today it's even more of king. If you have goods in your godown, that means cash, as far as I'm concerned. You will be able to easily convert it into money as we go along. When you talk about imports, I think, again, I would stress the point, alliance. a lot of our Jamaati members have the same kind of businesses. Why not have a central place where everything comes in and you distribute it amongst yourselves, right? We have, sometimes we have a mental block. We want to compete against ourselves. Instead of uniting together and holding hands, we are constantly fighting each other. To whose betterment? That is my question. Who is the winner at the end of the day? We're all losers. I mean, if all the hotels decided we will slash prices, what are you doing? At the end of the day, if you're not going to make money, your overheads and operational costs are so high that you want to make sure that you can meet them, because now you're in a rut, yes, right? Instead of thinking differently and saying, okay, let's all come together and say, okay, this should be 50, this should be 60, this should be 70, this should be 80. And we will not deviate from that. You will suddenly see everybody's making money, right?
And not only that, like you said earlier, your purchasing power will be greater with an alliance. Right. So your costs will be less. And having less costs and having a stable revenue, well, I don't know if it'll be stable, but it'll be somewhat stable in the sense of pricing wise, it gives a better picture for the future.
Yeah, I mean, markets are always waver. And I'll give you, when I first opened this hotel in 1997, 126 rooms, and I used to get calls every single day, right? People begging me for a room, right? And my prices were sky high, right? And so we made a fantastic return at that time. Slowly but surely, other hotels came in here, excuse me, and it diluted my market in a way. But steadily, this hotel has always done 75, 78% occupancy through the year. Post 2015, when the government decided that they are not going to use hotels for conferences or stay or whatever, had a major impact, not only on our hotel, but a lot of other hotels. Occupancies went down slowly, and we were averaging 50%, right? And then suddenly, COVID hits us. From 78, 80% down to zero, right? So you can imagine what it does to a business, right? You see it going down, and you're trying to mitigate it by doing all kinds of different things. I mean, I think I pride myself as far as New Africa Hotel is concerned, or now the 4 Point Sheraton, that we probably have the best catering services, right? We do a lot of catering, and that is a major market for us. Now again, going back to the restaurant industry, why can't we, as an alliance of some sort, do this catering, right? We have invested money, so I would have banquet tables, banquet chairs, I would have crockery, cutlery, you name it. Everything is there, so that if somebody calls me and says, I want dinner for 500 people, I'll tell you, okay, no issues, I'll do it. Because I know, or even if I don't have all of it, I know where to outsource, right?
Coming together, which is the most important element I think we're trying to talk about.
This is what I'm saying, and I think I can't stress it more, that I think alliances, partnerships are very, very important. We started this years ago. We had IBN as a group, the Smiley Business Network, which then became Intra Business Network, something similar to that. And the Tanzanian chapter at that time was probably the strongest, right? And I don't see any reason why we cannot replicate it again, right?
China and Germany has now started to open and get back to some normal levels, with hotels, restaurants, and retail businesses open, as well as public transport. Progress in other countries such as Australia and New Zealand is commendable. Do you think there are learnings from these countries we can follow, and what are they? And how soon do you think we'll come back to normal levels? And what can we do as a Jamaat to help ensure we are ready when these normal levels present themselves?
No, I'm of a very different thought, Shazin. I'm too radical about this. There is not going to be a normal level ever again, right? What is normal, what was normal 2 years ago, cannot now be normal again, right? Because we have adapted, right? As human beings, we've adapted. I hold meetings on Zoom every second hour. I have a meeting on Zoom. And I'm saying, why the need to travel to a particular location to have a meeting? Unless I have something else to do there, I will not do it. So now, in my mind, I'm saying, I used to travel, let's say, to Nairobi for my board meetings. I don't need to go. Why should I go? I have my smartphone, I have my laptop or tablet or whatever, and I can be in that meeting and virtually and still give the same input. Or perhaps even better, because I will be better prepared. Sometimes what happens with meetings is that you are reading through while the meeting is going on. This way, you have to be ready so that you can answer. So there is a different learning. Look at schools. The distance learning protocols that have been put together, I think some of them are working fantastically well, right? And I would think as we go along, while the issue of social distancing is going to be there for some time, right? How will schools operate? We have an issue in the sense that you have a class of 30, right? Which was in this finite area. And now, will I take the same 30 people back in that class and teach them? Not possible. Not under the present, what we are given as regulations now from the Ministry of Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. We opened the Aga Khan School yesterday, just for the Nectar Form 6, because they're going to have their exams starting 25th June. And thankfully for us, I think this is a pilot thing, because we only have a few students. We could separate them in 3 different classes for 3 different subjects, and it's easier for us. But when the whole school gets together, we have an issue. So we are racking our brains, not only here, worldwide, to see what needs to be done. So there will be probably, I think, different timings for different people, right? Different kids will come in maybe in the morning, so some will come in the afternoon. Now that puts a lot of pressure in different ways. One, on teachers. Yes. Secondly, on even administrative staff, right? Because this is now double timing, whatever you're doing. What happens to sports, right? We have opened up sports in this country. We already are open, right? And so shall we do the same thing for our kids? Does that mean, how does that imply against what we are doing for the classroom? So there are lots of questions. There is no simple answer to anything. There is no post-COVID-19. That's my, and I would state this again and again. COVID is not going to go away. Look at it from a simplistic point of view. Why would it go away? Because a vaccine was found, or a cure was found? But a cure doesn't mean that the vaccine is not there. A cure just means that you had TB, so I cured you, but TB is still there, right? If I have a vaccine, right, will it really work? Because the virus is mutating, right? So will one real vaccine really work? It's a question. Maybe it does. In my mind, it doesn't. Okay. So I'm saying, let's say a vaccine was found and everything is hunky-dory, and if you get a vaccine, you'll never get corona again. When do you think you will get vaccinated? There are 7.2 billion people in this world. When will your chance come? Okay? Even if I say, let's be really optimistic about this, that we already have a vaccine which is ready to be produced, and you need to produce 7.2 billion of them, right? How long does it take to produce? Who are the people who will get it first, right? And when will our chance happen? In the best, most optimistic scenario, 2 years. In these 2 years, what do? We live the way we do, social distancing, making sure that you sanitize yourself, making sure that you don't go to places where there could be suspect, live in fear. I don't know. It's a big question. I don't have an answer for it. I will know what I will do, because I firmly believe that all of us will get corona one way or the other, right? And I think we should be prepared for that. Let us not be afraid. The fear that I see among people is what drives your immunity down. And this is a scientific fact. So my appeal to the Jamaat is, don't fear it, right? Yes, some people might succumb to it, right? Because you might have secondary issues. People like us who have diabetes are more prone, right? Our age group is more prone, right? So we have to be a little bit more careful. But by being careful, again, it's all about viral load. When I say viral load, basically, if I had COVID right now and I sneezed, right? And we are not at a 2-meter distance, let's say, and you can get the virus. It depends how much of the virus you are actually ingesting. If it's just a little bit, you might be lucky and say, I got a mild cold or whatever, and it finished, and you have started producing antibodies for it. What is a vaccine? A vaccine is a mild form of the virus itself, which is injected in you so that your body actually starts making antibodies. That is what's the vaccine, right? So, in any event, even if you are vaccinated, you will still get corona, if I look at it from their point of view, right? So, anyway, I could go on for this forever.
Last question. What opportunities present, and I know you don't like to use the word post-COVID-19, do you see for the Jamaat in various sectors?
I think, Shazin, I think I've already answered your question in a way. I think it's a world which requires a lot of technology, right? Technology will rule this world, and it's already doing that. I mean, AI today, if I look at it, blockchain, all these things are used on a daily basis. People don't even understand, if I told a truck driver, blockchain, he will think when I'm taking out the engine, the block and chain that I'm using, this blockchain, right? Because nobody understands it. You have to be within that jargon to be able to understand what blockchain means. Blockchain is just simply being more transparent, right? Being able to understand each and every way what is happening to a certain transaction or whatever it is, right? And we talk about AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Now, artificial intelligence, what is artificial intelligence, right? In the past, artificial intelligence was making of robots, and that was artificial intelligence, right? Microbots or whatever, that's also artificial intelligence. But AI in its own way is just taking massive amounts of data that we have, right? And making sense out of it. To say, how many Shazin alikes are there in this world? Now, if you had the world's data in a room, AI would be able to do that for you. Not only that, it would then, over and above that, prompt you and give you more and more information, right? That is what it is all about, because you know, it won't do your thinking for you, but it will be more analytical, right? So I look at it more like analytical intelligence than anything else.
Thank you, Shabir. So to recap and conclude, the key takeaways for the Jamaat are as follows. 1. Be prudent in decision making. 2. Do not take unnecessary, uncalculated risks. 3. Minimize and reduce costs without affecting operations. Number 4. Best practice, adaptability, and continuous learning are very important as we move into the digital world. Thank you, Shabir, for taking the time to speak with us, share your wealth of experience and business acumen as we all face a challenging journey during these times. We wish you all the best in your businesses, and we hope you enjoyed the session.
Thank you very much, Shazin, and good luck to the EPB.
Thank you. We'll be doing a number of similar Q&As across different sectors over the coming weeks. Please stay tuned, stay well, stay safe. We will see you at the next EPB webinar. Ya Ali Madad.